Hi friends, welcome back to my channel, Front End Technologies. Today, we are going to talk on closures in JavaScript. This is frequently asked interview question and people always fear explaining this during an interview. So, without any further delay, let's kickstart the session this very minute. Closures are everywhere in JavaScript, and you have probably been using it even if you have not realized it yet. In JavaScript, closures are created every time a function is created. With closures, it is possible for an internal function to have access to the scope of an external function. Before seeing some examples of closures in JavaScript, we must understand a little what the lexical environment is. Let's understand lexical scoping with the help of an example. Outer function creates two local variable, name and city. It has one inner function as well. The inner function is available only within the body of the outer function. Note that inner function has one local variable. However, inner function have access to the variable of the outer function, and it can access the variable name and city declared in the parent function outer. So let me run this again and show you. So here you can see it has access to its local variable, that is greet, and it has access to the lexical scoping of the outer function which has name and city within. According to the lexical scoping, the scope can be nested and the inner function can have access to the variable declared in its outer scope. We have seen it through this output. Let's move on to the next topic. A closure is the combination of a function and the lexical environment within which that function was declared. Closures are inner functions that have access to the outer functions, variable, and parameters. Even after the outer function's execution is finished, the inner functions have access to the variables in the outer function. Let's understand this with the help of an example. Again, we came back to the same example. Let me run this. Let me execute fun return. Okay. So it returned me the inner function. Let me execute it. Okay. It gave me this output. Hi Nehal Rai, city Pune. So when the outer function returned the inner function remembers the lexical scope it came from. That is from the outer function. So let me show you. Function return dot prototype. So here in the constructor, let me see the scope. In the closure, I can see even after the outer function is executed, the inner function, that is the inner itself, restored or retained the value of the lexical scoping of the outer function, that is name and the city. So inside a function, it forms a closure with variable which are part of outer lexical scope. Function inner was bind to the variable of the outer function we can see on the screen clearly. So that means it forms a closure and it has access to its parent lexical scope. Through this example, I can say a closure gives you access to an outer function scope from an inner function. And in JavaScript, closure are created every time, guys, a function is created at function creation time. Now, guys, we are going to talk about closure scope chain. Every closure has three scopes: local scope, outer function scope, and global scope. Let me make you understand the same with the help of an example. You can see an example on the left where function f has one variable b and has an inner function n. So here you can see clearly the same in the right side picture that function f has b variable and has an inner function, that is n. For function f, A is the global scope and B variable is the local scope variable. After function f returns function n, now function n has A as a global scope, then it has access to B, which is a outer function scope, and of course it has its C and D, that is the local variable, which it can access. So this is all about closure scope chain. These are the practical example of closure: the for loop dilemma, emulating private variables in JavaScript, creation of higher order functions. There are much more to the closure. Hope you liked the video. Stay tuned for the upcoming ones. Please like, share and subscribe.